Sadat has been America's friend in the Mideast for years. Sometimes it seemed they were our only friend. The assassination of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat will affect this entire region politically. Neighboring countries are recalculating their political strategies in case Sadat's plan for peace cannot survive without its author. Sadat was a mainstay in the tumultuous land. His death will affect U.S. foreign policy and the Mideast as a whole.
I think the main implication is that there's going to be a great degree of instability throughout the region. With the death of Sadat, a voice of reason has passed, and as a result, the various confrontation states are going to be using this to create further instability in conjunction, I think, with Soviet involvement.
Adel Ali is Egyptian, and he doesn't take a fatalistic viewpoint. He thinks the Egyptian people will continue Sadat's plan for peace because Sadat showed them that peace will bring prosperity.
Because every single Egyptian felt the war, paid the price for the war, not just the first 48, 56, 67, 73. They lost over 100,000 casualties. So you just can't go back on it. And
the Egyptian transfer of power has been peaceful so far, but how long that peace will last is a question no one can answer. Sue Lauer, Action 4. Today is not the best day to be flying, even if it is the weekend of the OU-Texas game. Bad weather always causes some problems with the tower, but pilots here are willing to work those problems out. These guys are professionals, corporate pilots with several thousand hours flying time. They don't like the inconvenience any better than their passengers do, but they understand why delays are necessary.
If you do wait on the ground, you're mad. But even so, when you get airborne and there's some problems, if you understand the system and try to work with the system, we had to work with the system before the controllers went out, and we did. But you can't get up there and just get mad and start raising hell. You just can't do that.
Pilots say the bad weather will cause inconveniences and delays for people going to Dallas this weekend, but they stress the inconveniences are only for safety's sake. Pilots here say they wouldn't be flying if the skies weren't safe. Sue Lauer, Action 4 at Wiley Post Airport.
This morning at about 3:17 a.m., our officers were called here to 323 Northwest 26 in reference to a subject being shot. When they arrived, they found that the person who had been shot was inside this residence here, and they learned that he had been a burglar who had come through a bathroom window, and he had accosted the person living here and his wife. The gentleman that lives at this residence managed to get a weapon that he kept here at the residence and apparently shot this subject once, and our officers found him laying inside the residence near the front door. When AmCare arrived here, he apparently was still alive at the scene. They transported him to Presbyterian Hospital where he was pronounced dead.
The workload was as heavy as the rainfall here at the Oklahoma Highway Patrol headquarters in Ardmore. Troopers were besieged by requests for alternate routes around flooded parts of the state. In addition, they were kept busy keeping concerned relatives informed on personal and property damage in the area. But these guys had it easy compared to the troopers working on I-35. They had the unfortunate task of letting people know that the interstate between Ardmore and Gainesville, Texas was closed.
If you want to get to Texas, you're going to have to go through Durant, Oklahoma.
Travelers going to Dallas were rerouted through Wichita Falls. That made for short tempers and long lines. Troopers feel traffic on I-35 should be back to normal by sometime this evening if the weather clears up. Mark O'Neill, Action 4 in Ardmore.
Donald Michael Corey arrived at the Oklahoma County Courthouse, escorted by 2 detectives shortly before 1 this morning. He was immediately booked in the county jail on charges of kidnapping 2 girls. Those girls have not been found. Corey was found in Greenville, Alabama, after he applied for church aid there. He had been sent to the local police station by the church to submit his application. He was arrested when police there became aware of his outstanding warrant in Oklahoma. A search was made of the vehicle Corey drove to the police station, but nothing positive was found, connecting the carnival drifter to the girls. The Oklahoma City detectives did bring his belongings from the car here, where they will be analyzed. Donald Michael Corey will be arraigned at 8:45 this morning in Oklahoma District Court. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Condemned inmates will spend their last 30 days inside this 12-by-8 cell. 2 guards will be stationed outside the door to screen visitors and to make sure the prisoner doesn't hurt himself. About an hour before the scheduled execution, a guard will bring a gurney to the cell. The inmate is securely strapped in, and then he's wheeled the final few feet to the execution chamber. Inside the chamber, the convict is placed on a permanent table in full view of a handful of witnesses. 3 anonymous executioners will stand behind this partition, ready to administer the lethal injection at the proper time. After the death warrant is read to the inmate, the executioner injects a powerful barbiturate into the condemned convict's veins. That's followed a few moments later by a deadly dose of poison. That's how the execution is supposed to work. But state prison officials admit they aren't sure just what will happen, since this could be the country's first death by lethal injection.
Through several years of working on our procedures, our operations memorandum, we have tried to anticipate every possible problem that we would have in carrying out such a procedure, and have rewritten our operations memorandum so that hopefully what we are showing you today is something that can be carried off well, can be carried off without a hitch, and can be carried off in a dignified manner.
Prison authorities wouldn't allow reporters or photographers inside the execution area while Sonny Hayes was staying here. But now that the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals has indefinitely put a hold on Hayes' execution, prison authorities felt this was a good time to show the area off. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the McAlester State Prison.
Before heading back to Washington, Senator Boren made a stop at Tinker Air Force Base, where officials gave him a tour of the AWACS plane. Boren has said all along that he is opposed to selling the planes to Saudi Arabia unless tougher security measures were added to the package. After the tour, he said he was a little more comfortable with the sale now, but he is still undecided.
There's still a few security arrangements that I would like to see improved, and I've discussed these with the President and will continue to discuss them with him. But I think on balance, I would have to say that what I've seen today makes it more likely that I will be able to vote for the sale, because considering we won't be transferring this until 1985, considering the aspects of the technology that will not be included in the sale but will be held by us, I think that there's less and less likelihood that anything that would be included would be helpful to the Soviets, for example, if it fell into the wrong hands.
After Boren's press conference, Tinker officials let the news media onto the plane. The AWACS is a sophisticated airborne command center using a Doppler radar system with a surveillance range of 200 miles. President Reagan says that will bring security to a troubled Middle East. Most everyone agrees on the need for the plane, but a lot of people feel that security is best served by U.S. control. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4 at Tinker Air Force Base.
This is the truck stop where two Oklahoma City girls were last seen. On October the 26th, Charlotte Kinsey and Cinda Pallett came here with a man who promised them $5 an hour to help him unload some stuffed animals from his truck. But the truck wasn't here, so the man let out two boys who'd also been promised work and told them to wait while he and the girls went on down to another truck stop to see if the truck was there. That was the last time the two girls were seen driving off with a bearded man in a late model beige Grand Prix Pontiac. Based on a composite drawing by the boys, Don Corey had been a prime suspect in the girls' disappearance until yesterday when charges were dropped. But authorities are still looking for a man resembling Corey and may have a new composite drawing by tomorrow.
Corey's facial features are remarkably similar to the composite that we have. However, he is smaller in physical stature. What we're doing, therefore, is refining as many of the details as we can. And perhaps then we will be able to utilize the law enforcement system and the network, inquiring with other departments to better that description even further, and perhaps even to identify our suspect.
Mundy stresses that the disappearance of Charlotte Kinsey and Cinda Pallett is not being treated as a runaway case, but rather criminal abduction. Several detectives and technicians on the Special Task Force are busy sorting out and piecing together reports from the last 3.5 weeks to surface stronger leads in finding the suspect. Meanwhile, police continue to urge anyone having information about the whereabouts of the suspect or the missing girls to contact them immediately. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the Oklahoma City Police Headquarters.
We're looking here as well as in other states even. So it's very possible he's still in this area. It's possible that he's a local resident.
The question here is one of quality.
Be careful coming down.
What kind of people do we want watching over our children's education? The state minimum salary right now is $11,060 for teachers. Oklahoma has the lowest unemployment rate in the nation. And with that kind of salary, teachers are looking into other jobs that pay much more.
The limited purchasing power of present salary is one need. The strong competition among various agencies and industries for the services of quality people is another one.
The state board is recommending a $6,000 raise over the next 2 years to keep teachers in the classroom. The recommendation will go to the legislature at the beginning of the next session, and people in the education department think they will go along. Ted Brown, Action 4.
So we can just appropriate the money and ask the
Governor Nye welcomed oilmen from across the Midwest to the University of Oklahoma this morning to help kick off a fundraising drive for the proposed energy center. The construction of the center will cost an estimated $45 million, $15 million of which has been pledged by the state, the other $30 pledged by OU alum Bill Saxon. Saxon spoke to the guest as another oil man, and he challenged them to return a part of their profits to the soil.
I, for one, wouldn't be standing here, and I don't think most of you all would be enjoying what we're enjoying today. The oil crisis, the energy crisis, we prospered by it finally. I would not have been able to do what I've done for the university had it not been for that crisis. And I feel a very deep moral obligation to help trying to solve that crisis from the funds that I acquired by that crisis.
The $45 million for building the center has already been pledged. Now the university wants another $20 million to help maintain the center without draining other campus funds. Nearly half of that $20 million has been pledged by 52 founders of the center, and the university hopes that the rest of the money can be raised soon. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in Norman.
For several years now, the industrial customer of Oklahoma Natural Gas has been picking up a pretty hefty burden of the rate increases. And it's finally reached that point now where they are saying that if it keeps going on, they will have to go to an alternative form of fuel. And our concern is if that happens, that would have a detrimental effect on the residential customer.
Final dollars appropriated, though, come out of the appropriations process. So I think past years as a base for at least administrated by the Department of Health and Human Services, there are some 25 going to be able to provide other types of assistance. There are a lot of ways that reductions can be effected in the cost of operating governmental programs. One way is to reduce the overhead and improve the efficiency. Another way is to reduce the total level of services all the way across the spectrum of services that are being offered. And a third way is to reduce individual programs, maybe eliminate them completely.
The roundup began around sundown as officers from a number of surrounding police agencies brought the suspected dope dealers to the Moore police station for booking. Undercover officers have been buying Quaaludes, PCP, cocaine, and marijuana from the dealers for 6 months, but they waited until tonight to bust all of them at once. Their trap netted 19 suspects. Police hope the raid will dry up drugs and more, at least temporarily.
We always experience a recession in drug activities immediately following one of these raids, but within 2 or 3 months it starts up again. This is the only method we have to combat it, and I feel that we just have to continue to do this if we're going to keep it down. I think our drug problem is far less than other metropolitan cities.
After booking, the suspects will be taken to jails in either Cleveland or Oklahoma County. More police officials view tonight's raid as both a beginning and an end. The arrests end their present 6-month investigation. Now it's time to prepare for their next battle in the continuing war on drugs. Scott Wallace, Action 4, and more.
A viewer says, I divorced my husband after 32 years of marriage, during which time we raised 6 children. I was awarded alimony, which my husband paid for a short while, but quit paying after he moved to another state. He's now retired, living on a military pension and Social Security. What can I do? Well, there's no procedure or law to force an ex-spouse to pay his or her alimony on time, but you may sue a former spouse for past payments, plus court costs and attorney's fees. You may bring your suit in the court where the divorce was granted or where your ex-spouse lives. After receiving a judgment, you can then garnish up to 25% of your husband's military benefits, but his Social Security benefits cannot be garnished. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.